Attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Adoptive Family Camps, Connecting, Healing, and Having Fun, which is being offered as part of the ASAP Post-Conference webinar series. Before we begin, I'd like to go over a couple housekeeping items related to today's webinar. First, you will notice a Zoom Viewer button in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. You can use this button to adjust the size of your webinar screen. Secondly, in the control panel located on the upper right-hand side of your screen, you will see the word Questions listed. You can use the plus and minus button to open or close this box. If you have a question for Pam, you can enter it here. Time permitting, any questions will be answered at the end of the webinar. And now, I am pleased to introduce our presenter for today's webinar, our very own Pam Fry. Pam serves as the Chief Program Officer for Harmony Family Center, as well as leading Harmony's private, international, and domestic adoption division. Pam earned her BA in Psychology and MS in Educational and Counseling Psychology from the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. She has spent her over 25-year career providing direct services and serving in leadership roles in mental health and child welfare. Pam started her career at Harmony writing adoptive home studies and serving as the lead trainer for the Infant Adoption Training Initiative. For the last 5 years, she has served as the agency's Chief Program Officer, providing oversight for federal and state contracts. Adoptive Family Camps incorporate three of Pam's greatest loves: play, nature, and adoption. Pam, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us today. Welcome.
Thank you, Nicole. I am so glad to be here and glad that you've taken the time with us. I'm not sure where all of our attendees are today, but it is a beautiful day here in East Tennessee. It is the sun is shining and it is spring. So wherever you are, I hope it's as nice as it is here today. So we're going to start off by just talking a little bit about our family camps, and okay, great. I struggled a moment there getting my my PowerPoint to work, but I've got it going. So I want to start off by talking a little bit about Harmony Family Center, and we are a full-service nonprofit adoption agency, and we were started in 1996 as Harmony Adoptions of Tennessee. And we began by providing infant and international adoption services, including adoption preparation, home studies, and post-adoption support. As the focus of adoption moved toward the needs of at-risk children in the child welfare system, Harmony developed a network of programs throughout our state to provide pre- and post-adopt support in home counseling, parent education, family support groups. We serve over 2,000 children and families each year. So we're going to start talking a little bit about our family camp. And we're going to go from the very beginning of the camp to the way it looks today. And I'm not sure if you've ever seen a movie, but a couple years ago there was a movie with Matt Damon in it called We Bought a Camp. Well, in 2008, Harmony bought a camp. And the camp that we bought is Camp Montvale. And I want to tell you a little bit about Camp Montvale. Camp Montvale consists of 364 acres. We are located at the base of Chilhowie Mountain, which is right next to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. It is a beautiful place to be. The property is as beautiful as it sounds like it would be. You may be asking yourself, why would an adoption agency buy a camp? But to us, buying a camp made perfect sense. because as you learn more about Montvale, you'll learn that it has been a place of healing for people for many years, and since the 1950s, Camp Montvale was a place that children came. So it seems like a perfect place for Harmony to develop programs that promote the well-being of children and families. So that's why we bought a camp in 2008. Montvale has been around for a long time, and we know from the records that the white settlers actually found the springs at Montvale in 1830, and it was probably hunters who actually found the springs at Montvale. Our springs are actually sulfur springs, and there's several springs on the property. And I'm sure some of you know that back in the 1800s, springs were very important to people, and people would go to springs to take the water. And Daniel Fout actually built the first hotel at Montvale Springs, and this hotel stood from 1832 to 1850. And in 1853, Asa Watson actually built a hotel that he called the Seven Gables Hotel, and it was described at the time, it was known as being the Saratoga of the South. So it was a place that affluent families would come and spend several weeks during the summer taking the spring waters at Montvale. Unfortunately, the Seven Gables Hotel burned down in 1896, and it was rebuilt in 1901, but then burned down again in 1933. And there is actually part of the Seven Gables Hotel that still are on the property, and I'll show you in pictures later where you can see that on the property today. But from 1947 until 2005, Montvale was the site of the YMCA summer camp. And so this is in our area, these camps made a big impression on a lot of kiddos over the years, and it was a place that a lot of kids, that impacted a lot of kids' lives. So that's part of our history and tradition of Camp Montvale. So here's a picture of the old Seven Gables Hotel, and this picture is courtesy of the Lawson McGee Library. And this is a picture of Camp Montvale when Harmony took possession of the property, and you can see in 2008 the way it looked when we got there, and then on the other side you'll see 2015, and this is kind of what it looks like today. So obviously we have done a lot of renovation to the property in these 7 years, but that's not really what we're here to talk about. So I'm going to talk about how we developed our family camp. At Harmony, we developed what we call a charter team, and it was formed with Harmony staff that were pulled from different programs. Primarily, we pulled staff that worked with our adoption support and preservation program, but we also had staff from the executive team and from other programs. We tried to bring in people that we knew had a connection to camp, because we thought they could bring that experience to the process. And our charter team was a group of people that we met, I think it was like monthly for quite some time, and we developed the program from the very bottom up. And we started off by developing what we called our therapeutic objectives. We had to develop all of our forms and releases of liability. We developed a screening process. We decided who we would serve with our adoptive family camps. We developed our agenda and all of the activities, and also a staffing pattern of how we were going to actually pull the family camps off. So our first charter team meeting occurred in August of 2011, and it took us nearly a full year to develop and implement our family camp. And the very first camp that we did was what we called a dress rehearsal camp. And we asked different families that were involved with Harmony, people who worked here. We asked them to voluntarily come to our camp and act as what we called our guinea pigs. And that first dress rehearsal camp took place in June of 2012. And for anyone out there who is considering doing a family camp, I would highly recommend that you do something similar and have a dress rehearsal, because it really allowed us to kind of work out some of the kinks that we had before we had actual clients who came to the first family camp. And so our first camp took place in July of 2012, and those were what we called real clients, and they were clients that were primarily served in our adoption support and preservation program, and our camp has run continuously since then. So we've been doing it a while, and of course over the years we've made some changes. As any time you do a process, you're going to make some changes over the years. So, and you can see in the picture some of our families that came to our first family camp. Some of the influences of our family camp. I think off the bat we want to talk about trust-based relational intervention, also known as TBRI. Several staff at Harmony over the years have done the week-long TBRI training in Fort Worth, Texas. So that's been a huge influence on our programs here at Harmony, but also heavily on our family camp. We have several staff now that are TBRI educators, and we have several staff that are considered TBRI practitioners. So this is a big influence on the development of our family camp. And if you know very much about TBRI, you know that they do camps for kids, but also do family camps with adopted and foster children. Another influence is a book by Richard Louv called The Last Child in the Woods, Saving Our Children from Nature Deficit Disorder. And this is a book that I've read, and several other staff that were part of that original charter team. And so that really influenced our process and the product that we developed. Of course, we were influenced by our own camp experiences as children and adults. Another big part of our camp and influenced our program is our equine-assisted psychotherapy program, and you can see in the corner a picture of one of our EAP therapists working with kids and the horses. And several years ago, prior to us buying the camp, we had several staff who were trained in PATH, and that is the Professional Association for Therapeutic Horsemanship, and we have been doing EAP with our clients for several years at Montville, but also in other locations. And that service primarily serves kids with our adoption support and preservation program. Other influences are, of course, just the nature of the Montville property and the facilities that we have, and you can see a beautiful picture of the property there. There are, at Montville, we have hiking trails, we have cabins, we have a swimming pool. So of course that property has influenced the camp that we developed. And then another thing that we really decided early on is that we wanted our camp to have a strong focus on family and connection between all the members of the family. And you see a quote, "To me, the essence of family camp is connection. Since our kids with trauma and attachment issues are often so disconnected from their families, from their bodies, and from their own feelings and from the natural world. And this is something that was said by one of our counselors that's been very involved with the family camp. And I think it really embodies what family camp is all about. So I'm going to share with you our core beliefs. You can see a cute picture of this is a family in one of our cabins, and so you can kind of see what they look like. But our core beliefs are that we believe all children are worthy of love, safety, respect, and belonging. We believe that nature is a unique, sensory-rich environment that promotes healing and learning. We believe that people heal within the context of family and relationship. And we believe that in order for children to move forward, their stories must be told, acknowledged, and embraced. We believe in celebrating the innate strength and resilience of family and children. Now I want to talk a little bit about the therapeutic objectives that we develop. So these are the things obviously that we want our kids and families to get out of coming to family camp. But we want to provide an emotionally and physically safe environment to promote attachment and strengthen relationships between parents and children, to provide therapeutic experiential activities through nature, animals, music, and movement, to educate the participants about attachment, trauma, grief, and parent-child interactions, to acknowledge, honor, and embrace each child's journey, and to create an experience of trust and connection, to have and to encourage imagination, creativity, and curiosity through play. So I'm going to talk a little bit about camp and provide an overview for what our camp actually looks like. But our family camp serves Tennessee families only, and they must have at least one adopted child in the home. However, all the kids who come obviously don't have to be adopted, but there needs to be at least one adopted kid in the family. Our camp is a weekend camp. That's just the way we do it. If you do your own family camp, you obviously don't have to do a weekend model. That's just what has worked for us. And we start on Friday evening about 5 or 6, and then we end up on Sunday afternoon about 1 or so. We do ask that the kids be at least 5 years old or going into kindergarten, because we found with kids younger than that, it's really hard just to manage them, and for them to really participate and take advantage of the program. So all the kiddos have to be 5 and up. Camp is primarily staffed by Harmony. We do use some outside professionals. We've used people who have experience in ropes course and adventure-based counseling. We also have volunteers who help with food. So those are just some examples of how we have used outside folks, but it is primarily staffed by people who work for Harmony. Our camp is very inclusive, and we work with families that are at different places in their adoption journey. We have some families that may have had the child in their home since they were an infant. We have some families that may have just finalized their adoption. So we have kids that come to family camp, and they still refer to their parents by their first names. So we have all different types of adoptive families. We have single adoptive parents, we have married couples, but we try to be as inclusive as possible. We primarily work with families that have adopted through foster care, but we have had families who have adopted infants and who have adopted internationally. It's very important in doing a family camp like this that there be an application and a screening process. We have an application that we put online, and we try to get that out as soon as we get our family camp schedule put together. We like to get that out there so that people can apply and work their schedules around family camp. We do have a screening process that we've developed. If you are ever interested in seeing our forms and our criterion for screening families, we're glad to share that with you. Because of the nature of our family camp, because it is in the wilderness. I mean, it's a 364-acre property. We are close to the Smoky Mountains. It is important that we screen for certain safety issues. For instance, if we have a child who is running away or suicidal or really aggressive, in that situation we would encourage the family to consider coming to camp in the future when things are different with that child. So that's really important. We do ask that families pay a very small deposit to hold their spot, and we do that just so that families will make it a priority to show up at family camp, when we always give them their deposit back when they come. But that was something that we've developed over the years. Our camp is primarily held in the summer and the fall, and that's just because that's when we found that we have the best attendance, so for obvious reasons. Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about the components of family camp. One of the things that's central to our family camp is what we call the Montvale Ways. And you can see a picture of a signpost with our Montvale Ways, and that was a sign that we actually, one of our staff people painted and did that herself. And so this talks about the Montvale Ways, and you can see on your screen the Montvale Ways, but these are in keeping with our objectives and our core beliefs, but it is a way that we can make it easier for the kids and the families to understand. And you can see we have the different colors, and each color stands for a different thing, like courage, creativity, kindness, respect, honesty, patience, and connections. And we weave the ways into our family camp through a lot of different ways. We encourage the kids to exhibit these characteristics through a process of beading. And you can see in your picture that we have a little jar there with plastic beads. And when our families show up at family camp, the first thing we do is give them a leather cord, which serves as a necklace. And as the kids exhibit the characteristics of the Montvale Ways, we reinforce that behavior by giving them beads. And it may seem kind of silly, and you might think that teenagers would necessarily put a lot of importance on beads, but it actually is a big part of camp, and the kids really get into it, even the teenagers. And so we give out beads the first day and a half of camp, and then we culminate the beading by doing a beading ceremony on Saturday evening, and we allow the kids to give beads to other kids, and the parents can give beads to kids. And it's really important and meaningful part of camp, and we found it to be really effective in reinforcing those things that we're hoping kids and families get out of family camp. So a ceremony and ritual are a very important part of camp, and you can see the picture of families and kids sitting around the campfire. We know that ceremony and ritual are very important to kids and to families, and I've included one of my favorite quotes. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of the principles of re-education, but I love this quote, which states that ceremony and ritual give order, stability, confidence to troubled children and adolescents whose lives are often in considerable disarray. So like any camp, whether it's just a traditional children's camp, a lot of what makes it important and meaningful are those ceremonies and the rituals. It is all about singing the songs around the campfire and doing those things that become so important part of the camp experience. And so I have just some pictures of some of the different rituals and ceremonies we do at camp. Up in the left-hand upper corner is a picture of it's called the family photograph, and we always start camp by taking a photograph of all the families who come there. You can see some pictures of our flags where we incorporate the colors of the Montvale Ways, and then there's a picture there of a staff person leading our opening ceremony, which is a very important part of camp. And camp, of course, has to have rules, and because our camp is very heavily influenced by TBRI, we chose to use the TBRI camp rules, which are very simple, and there are only 3 rules, but they're stick together, no hurts, and have fun. And so we start every group by reviewing those camp rules. Another important part of our family camp are parent-only groups. We have parent groups and we have kid groups, and then we have family groups. And so you can see a couple pictures of some of our past camps when these are pictures of parents doing their parent groups. And here's a quote from one of my favorite people, Karen Purvis, which states that you cannot lead a child to a place of healing that you have not been yourself. And parent groups are a very important part of camp. We do 2 types of parent groups. They're experiential type groups, and then we do psychoeducational groups. We have, in terms of experiential groups, we've done things like mindfulness, guided imagery, stress reduction type groups, and then we also, for our psychoed groups, we have done things like TBRI, we've done some groups on nature, we've done Circle of Security. So those are just some of the different types of groups that we've done. The parent groups are very important. And one of the beautiful things that you see happen in family camp is the connection that the parents, the families develop among themselves. And often we see that that connection is so strong that the parents will continue to communicate with each other after family camp is over. And our family camp was actually very instrumental in helping us rebuild our support groups. And it was from a family camp that we really had a core group of parents who became our core group of our support groups that we have for our ASAP program. So it's really neat to see that connection that happens between the parents in family camp. And here's some pictures of some of our kid activities. Obviously, you see the horse and some arts and crafts and just typical kid things. So, in growing up, a child should know some joy in each day and look forward to some joyous event for the morrow. And that's a quote from the Principles of Re-Education. But I think that's a big part of family camp, is just allowing the kids to have fun. And we know that having fun and play are very healing for kids who have a history of trauma. It's very important for any kids, but particularly for kids that have been in the child welfare system. So some of our kids activities, we do ropes course activities, and I'll show you some pictures of that here in a little bit. We do just your traditional arts and crafts. We do EAP, which is the using the horses with the kids. And then we also do some process groups where the kids talk about the camp and what they liked and what they didn't like. The last camp we did, we focused on the book about filling your bucket. How do you feel? How do I fill my bucket? Or I can't remember the name, but I think it's How Do You Fill Your Bucket? And so that was what we did last year, and it was a book and an activity that we did with the kids, and it was very effective. So here's some pictures of our kids doing the activities. Obviously, we have a young man climbing up our climbing wall because we do have a ropes course on our property. You see the horses and a kid doing a trust fall. So that's just some of the kids' activities that we do. And then we also spend some time doing family activities, and we do arts and crafts with as a family, and that's really interesting to see the families doing arts and craft projects together. We do hiking. We always spend some time around the campfire roasting s'mores. We have a pool, so we do some family camp pool time. We do ropes course activities with the families, and then we also try to do something called the family night, where we do something really fun, like have a country western night or a Hawaiian luau, or just we've had a singer-songwriter come in and sing to the family. So we just try to do things that are fun and very very campy. We also do free time, and that's an important part of camp. We do tell our parents that they are responsible for watching their for their kids during free time, but that's a real good time for the families to rest and do whatever they would like. They may play a board game or go on a hike or whatever, but that is an important part of a family camp too. Okay. And you can see a little bit about family camp from these pictures. We have a wonderful pool. We have a ropes course. We have some great hiking trails, and we always have a campfire. Even if it's 97 degrees outside, we will have a campfire because that's what camp is about. So, after doing family camp for these 3 years, we've learned a lot of lessons doing family camp, and I'm not sure if I have folks on the call today or the webinar today who are interested in doing family camps themselves, but I thought it would be important to share with you some of the things that we've learned about doing family camp. It's always important, obviously, to have a rain plan if you're doing any kind of activities, and we're always just kind of thinking about how we can modify our activities to do inside in the event that we have bad weather, because that happens. We get a lot of rain, and sometimes we've had to, it's rained almost the entire family camp, but we always have a plan, and we know what we're going to do if we have bad weather. Consistency of staff is very important. We've gotten feedback over the years that our families really like it if we have consistent staff for the whole weekend. And so we try to set up our staffing pattern so that most folks are there, in terms of our staff are there the entire weekend. So it makes it tough for staff, but it makes it a better experience for the people who come to camp. Rest and downtime are very important to kids. Nutrition and hydration are very important. We feed our kids about every 2 hours and offer them water so that they will stay good and hydrated. And we know that we all function better if we're hydrated and we're not hungry. Volunteers can be a really important part of your camp. They just, of course, have to be educated and about confidentiality and have to be screened somewhat, but I would encourage you to use volunteers. We find that it's important to have a balance of structured time and unstructured time. And but in the most important thing that we have found is connection. And one of the beauties of our camp, and I realize not everyone is going to have the luxury of having a camp in the Great Smoky Mountains, but um, our cell phones do not work at our property, and I think that's a huge benefit to our family. So the temptation to play on the cell phone and to look at Facebook rather than connecting with each other, it just does not exist because for the most part, most people do not get cell coverage where we are, and I think that's it's great that our families are almost forced to actually be with each other and engage. And some of the feedback that we've gotten over the years, I've just taken a few of the quotes that we've gotten from families. We do use a pre and a post test to measure the gains that people make in family camp, and we use the parent feelings form, and we do it before and after family camp. We also do a satisfaction survey that we give to the kids and to the adults, and these are some of the comments that we've gotten. I think one of my favorite is, it says, my favorite part was being with like-minded folks who understand when others do not. And I think that's one of the things that you hear from adoptive families is that other people don't really understand the kind of things that we're going through. And I think that's one of the many benefits to having a family camp is that the adoptive families get to connect and support each other. So I have gotten to the end of my presentation and wanted to ask if you guys have any questions, if you can get those to me. Also, if you have any questions after the fact, if you'd like to email me, my email is there. It's pam@harmonyfamilycenter.org. I'm glad to share any schedules or forms or anything that anyone might have that they would like to ask me. Just send me an email or give me a call, and I'm glad to do whatever I can to help.
All right, Pam, thank you so much. I know we're ending a little bit early. I don't know, does not look like we've got any questions that have been submitted, but as Pam has said, you see her email address on the screen. Also, I think Pam mentioned you can also reach her by phone, and that direct number to Harmony Family Center is 865-982-5225. So we are finishing a little early. We certainly do hope, though, that you've enjoyed today's webinar. Our sincere thanks and appreciation to you, Pam, for taking the time to present on such an interesting topic and one that's certainly near and dear to all of our staff's hearts here at Harmony. As a reminder, all of the webinars have been recorded and are available on the Harmony website at www.harmonyfamilycenter.org. Please plan to join us at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday, March the 9th, for the final webinar in the ASAP Post-Conference Series entitled Keeping Your Head Above Water, which will be presented by Lisa Maynard. Until then, I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. Take care.